Here are some cute little budget-friendly ornaments that I put together. So I found these white, rustic brown, and black tags. They come in a set of 12 each. They're already painted in these colors. I found them over in the party section at Hobby Lobby. And so also found these vintage Santa little decals, as well as some glittered holly. So what I'm going to do is start with the brown one, and I have this plastic stencil that I've had on hand for many years, and just taking a makeup sponge and some red paint, just giving it some red stripes so that it turns out like this. Easy peasy lemon squeezy, just to add a just a background for this. And then I'm going to go ahead and distress it just a little. This is my distress ink in black, and then just going around the edges just to give it a distressed look. Then I'm going to go ahead and add some paint splatters with some off-white or ivory paint with my stencil brush and a stick. That is the way that I like to add some paint splatters to my projects. Then I add some glitter by using my adhesive spray and my sprinkling on some glitter to each one of those. Then this is what I am doing for the Merry Christmas. I just printed it out on my Word document on my computer, and the font is Joseph and Sophia. It is found at defont.com, and so I cut it to the size that would fit my tag, and then I'm going to rip around the edges to give it the aged look. Then I take my vintage photo distress ink and then just go around those. And for an extra touch, I have my glossy accents. It's kind of like an embellishment accent, and I like to kind of dab that on, and it kind of gives a glossy look to this sign like this. I'm just using a little stencil brush. And then to add my embellishments to my tag, I have these 3D foam squares. I found these in the craft like scrapbooking section, and so I add them to the back of the little decals as well as my sign, and then attach them to my little tag here, and my little ornament is coming together so nicely. For the small jingle bells, I have this garland that I got in the Christmas section at Hobby Lobby. It is meant for, to go around your tree, but I'm like, I can take that apart and use those little bells because I love that size. And so then this brown wire is something that I picked up over at Michael's several years ago. It almost looks like rusty wire. It can pass for that. And I just thread the little bells on there, and then I'm using my curling tools from a sweet friend and follower that she sent me, and it just has a little notch in there, and then it just curls my wires so easy for me. And if you're interested in that, I will have information of where you can find those little curling tools. I will have the website of where you can find those. All right, so then I just ripped some muslin fabric and then just threading that through the hole, and then I'm going to make a hanger for this one. And then this is what I did, guys, for the black one. Very similar to this one, the vintage Santa, just with the black tags. I just took some buttermilk paint and my fan brush, and I'm just making my own background, just, doing my faux plaid pattern. No really rhyme or reason to it. Just adding some paint to that, letting that dry, then adding my glitter like I did with the first one, just with my adhesive spray, just sprinkling on my glitter, then adding my attachments the same way. Now for the Merry Christmas, I use these same Joseph Sophia font, but I did it instead of black. I did it Merry Christmas in red, and then just printed that out on my my home computer. For the white tag Christmas tree ornaments, I'm using the white tags from Hobby Lobby as well as the wooden trees from the Dollar Tree. There were 8 of the wooden trees in this pack. Now I'm going to use some scrapbook paper, and all of the scrapbook paper that I'm using in this project is from Hobby Lobby. I just found the patterns that I wanted. I wanted some tree patterns and some holly, and so I just traced out the trees. I like to trace on the front side so that I can get what pattern or which part of the paper that I want. I just cut it out with my scissors, and then again attaching that to the tree using the Mod Podge heat transfer method. Just adding some Mod Podge, let that dry, and then use my little iron, my Cricut mini heat press is what I like to use, and then attaching that to my my tree paper, to my tree wood little embellishment here. Some Santa belly ornaments using the white tags. Now, what I'm using here is the Santa belt ribbon that I got from Hobby Lobby, and I'm just measuring that to go around, then cutting it, and then gluing that there right there on the bottom where kind of like the Santa belt would go. Then I'm going to go ahead and pull out my black buttons and just kind of matching up the sizes that I wanted. And so I just glued those to the kind of like where the shirt would be. So for the hanger, I have this black with the white stitching, this thin ribbon from Hobby Lobby. I'm going to be putting that through the hole. And so let me tell you what I used to make the hanger. Now, I had these little plastic hair ties, little black ties that I had purchased a long time ago for my own hair, and but they were just too thin. They would not hold my hair. So I'm like, yeah, I might use them for something else or give them to someone else. Well, I'm going to use them in crafting here. I just wrapped that little ribbon around there and then just glued it so that it laid really nicely. Then now what I was doing is measuring out the space that I needed, went over to Cricut Design Space and then cut out Ho 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 in black permanent vinyl, just using my Cricut Joy. Then now I'm just putting that on each one of the ornaments, and that looks so cute. I just love these little Santa belly ornaments, and everything just looks so nice. I had 4 of these left from those that previous video, and so I think this was a great little way to make some little Santa belly ornaments. And then I just gave each one of them a coat of varnish so that everything would be nice and permanent. This project is using a little mini plastic bulb ornament that I got from a friend. This was part of a mystery box challenge that I had that I participated in, and I think it was a tag from Walmart. So that's probably where she got it from. So since it's plastic, I gave it a coat of white paint, or you could use Boss Bond, which is Slick Stick by Dixie Belle. It just kind of acts as a primer. And then now I'm giving it a coat of drop cloth Dixie Belle paint. So once that's dry, then I just take a stencil brush and coral acrylic paint and then just give some little cheeks for my snowman. Then I'm going to work on the eyes, and I start with a black marker first. I like the more almond shape. If you've been following me for any length of time and you've seen me do my little character faces, I like the more almond shapes where they kind of tilt and they touch at the top. And so then I take my black paint and go back and fill all of that in. Then I'm going to use just a detailing brush and just add some little stripes to the cheeks. I do this before I add my nose because I don't want to work around the nose. And I like to shade my projects, and this is something that you'll see me do when I'm doing my painted projects. As I say, the beauty is in the details, and it just really makes my projects pop. I put a lot of little detailing in my little characters, and so using some little detailing brushes are it's something that really helps in doing that. And then for that shading, I just use a flat brush and some paint, some water. Those blue paper towels, I just blend on the paper towel just to give me just a place to blend on that. And then now I'm just taking a round brush and some orange paint, and then just kind of making my nose like that, just going back and forth. Everything is just coming together so nicely for this little sweet little snowman ornament. Then for his mouth, I am just taking the end of a paintbrush, and this paintbrush it had a rounded curve, and so I just took my sanding block and just sanded that smooth so that sanded it flat so that it would make me the circles for his mouth. And then now I'm just taking some sea spray, which is an additive by Dixie Belle. It just adds a little bit of texture for my paint, and I'm using drop cloth by Dixie Belle. I'm just mixing that up, and then I'm going to add that to around my snowman. And I didn't do this first because I wanted to paint my face, and I didn't want the texture on there to be bumpy, so I just waited to the end to do this. And then I'm just using a brush just to paint that on, and then adding some glitter to make it sparkle. I know a lot of my friends do not like glitter, but I do not mind it. I love glitter. And I like the glitter that once I put it on and it stays. I don't want glitter all over my craft table or anything like that, but I do love the sparkle of the glitter. And then I'm just using my little black marker just to add some kind of outline for my nose and on the cheeks and stuff, and then adding some little white dots or white swooshes to his mouth. Then I'll paint the rest of the ornament and decorate it with a sweet little piece of homespun fabric. And this little snowman ornament is so super cute. is the wood item, and it is this 3 little gingerbread men, and I gave them a coat of cocoa. I love this color. I think it's my new favorite for gingerbread men, and that is an Americana paint color. And then I'm going to turn these into ornaments, and so I have these squares that I got from Dollar Tree. So I pulled 3 of those out and then gave them a coat of buttermilk, back and front. And then I'm going to do what I call the faux plaid pattern. I just have just a wispy brush. I got this paintbrush at Dollar Tree. I love this. It's kind of like in the arts and crafts section. I think it's for kids, maybe for, their painting or something like that. But I love it so much. And so I'm just giving it like the stripes. And then I'm going to go back just with my little detailing brush just to give it some white, just to kind of add a little bit of interest. Then to roughen it up or give it that rustic look, I'm just using my dark wax by Kills, just going around all of that to give it a little bit of darkness. I took the dark wax and added a bit of that to each of the gingerbread men, and then sanded off around the edges just to expose a little bit of that wood. Then for the eyes, I have my dotting tool. So I just took the one that I wanted and just gave them 2 eyes just like that. Then for the little squares, I just took my little ultrafine marker and just gave it a little bit of doodling just to give it the look that I like for that, for my little ornaments. And then I have to add some paint splatters because, that's what I love to do. I add black to my little blocks, and then I just add some buttermilk to the actual little gingerbread. I was going to leave them plain like this, but, I'm a little extra, so I have to add some icing. And so I just took my little flat paintbrush and just added a little bit of icing around their arms and their legs. I just added some black stitching around each of the blocks, as well as some black Sharpie marker just to bring out my little gingerbread men. I just love all the little doodles and all the little things that just bring my little projects to life. And as I say, the beauty is in the details. And so to add the wire, I'm just using this bind wire. I find a lot of uses for this bind wire. And so I'm just taking my needle nose pliers and just curling that down and securing that so that it can be a little hanger, a little ornament, just a little gift for somebody special. And so then I am just going to glue the gingerbread to the little plaques, and it's just adorable. And so I added a homespun bow. I also added some tiny buttons to their belly. I added some raffia just to add, just for a little interest to my ornaments. And I just absolutely love how these turned out. I absolutely love how these homespun fabric Gingie bowl fillers or decor pieces turn out. So let me show you how I made them using some of these supplies. Now, the pattern for the Gingie came from mondaymandala.com. I'll tell you about that in just a second. I'm also using some brown fabric, some gold brown homespun fabric, and then the cardboard that I'm using for this project is just boxes that I cut up from my Magnolia Design Co. Just things that I've ordered, and their boxes are really, really nice. So the Gingie pattern comes from mondaymandala.com. I was on Pinterest and just searched for gingerbread man pattern, and then it led me to this pattern, and then that led me to the website. Oh my goodness, they have so many gingerbread patterns in different shapes and girls, boys, all that kind of thing. So check out mondaymandala.com if you want a gingerbread pattern. I will have a link for it in the description box. Not all cardboard boxes or cardboard that we use is the same thickness. So that usually depends on which tool we will need to use. Sometimes scissors, box blade, X-Acto knife, just something to cut through the cardboard. And what I did is I used a variety of tools here just to figure out which ones work the best for me. I'm glad that I did not use a pattern that was any more curved than what it is. And so my little bitty short blade Tim Holtz scissors actually did the best, as well as my X-Acto knife. I used my box blade just to cut those apart. And so yeah, that's what I'm saying. It just really depends on the thickness of the cardboard and depending on which tool will work the best for that project, what we're doing. So what I did is I had some batting, and so I cut out some batting so that I could have a little thickness to my gingerbread. And then this brown striped fabric is from Hobby Lobby. And so what I'm showing you here is I got off those stripes that kind of bugged me a little bit. So the next one I made sure and glued down the stripes so that when I pulled it to glue around the gingerbread body, I did not want those stripes to be wavy. That just kind of bugged me. But anyway, I'm just here to inspire you, to encourage you, just to give you ideas of just different things that, you could do and just share my little my little homespun gingerbread fabric ornaments with you, or bowl fillers or decor pieces. So what I did is I just took my time and just cut and spliced the fabric so that I can get it glued down all the way in the back. I did 2 brown and 2 of the brown homespun fabric. I don't know which one I like better. I love both of these patterns, and I love just how they kind of offset a little bit. And so now what I did to kind of really helped cover up that back because it wasn't very pretty, I just have some felt and just tracing out some felt on that. Now I'm just showing you the supplies that I'm using. Of course, if you don't have cardboard, you can always use foam board or poster board or, something like that to cover up the back. Scrapbook paper or brown bags or something like that would work as well. I am just, again, here to inspire you, to encourage you to just share ideas to create these sweet little gingerbread ornaments. Now, to give it a little bit of definition, I used my vintage photo distress ink and just went around each one of them and just gave it a little bit of color around the edges of the gingerbread. Then to give them a little bit of sparkle, I pulled out my Snow Flurry glitter and my adhesive spray and just added a little bit of sparkle to each of the gingerbread men. Then for the icing, I have this ivory rickrack. I had this in my stash, and so I cut pieces of that. And then I really think that this just is the perfect little icing for these little fabric, little gingerbread men. You can always use puffy paint or any kind of like lace or ribbon would work as well, but this was just perfect and I had it on hand, so I decided to go ahead and use it. Now to decorate the bodies, I just have some buttons in my stash and then just pulled out the ones that I wanted, getting them the sizes to match up, and then just use my Fabri-Tac glue just to glue everything down. And I absolutely love how these little homespun fabric gingerbread men turned out. I was totally inspired when I saw something so very similar at the antique farmhouse, and they had a big one that was kind of like a pillow, and so I'm like, I want to make some smaller ones for myself, and I absolutely love how these turned out. I will leave a link for my project inspiration in the description box because I always love to give credit where credit is due for my inspiration. I'm starting with this pack of 2 brushes. They're chippy brushes from the Dollar Tree. They have a wood handle on them and has the brush on them. These are 2-inch paintbrushes, and so I am going to paint them with primary red paint, let them dry. Now I want to kind of point out those ribbon rolls. Those work great by, just sticking at the end of my paintbrush in there and letting it dry. I just use that to my advantage. Okay, so then once that's dry, then I'm going to put on this Santa face, and I'm just going to be making a circle. The paint I'm using is Medium Flesh by Ceramcoat, and I just make the circle like that. Usually I put it on there with one coat. Now for the cheeks, I'm going to go ahead and use Coral color paint. I just use my stencil brush to do that. It's a little wispy, and I like the more up and down cheeks, and so that's what I do. I just take my time, just go on and just kind of put as much on there as I want to. Now the next thing I'm going to use is this caulk, and I like to get it from the Dollar Tree, and so this is what I'm going to do. Put it on there like that. I kind of do like, I'm kind of like frosting a cupcake or something like that. And so I just kind of like take my time, just do my caulk, go around, and then kind of do a point down at the bottom, like where the beard would go. Then I will go back and actually do the back part of it as well, and then let that completely dry. I don't want to forget about his eyebrows, so I just take a skinny stick and just do some eyebrows there at the top. Now I want a little distressing, and I do this or achieve this by just using some brown paint, and then I water that down. I'm just using a punch cup, and then actually one of those scruffy brushes that come out of that paint pack that I do like, that is listed in my Amazon shop. This works great for this. So I just kind of water down that brown paint and just go over the Santa beard just to give it some distressing. Then I just use a baby wipe or a Kleenex to get off any of the excess. So you can see here, the one in my left hand is distressed, and the one on my right hand is the one that is solid white. Okay, so I'm showing you this yarn. Now I have had this for many years, but a sweet friend did say that she found some of this yarn that I use for the mustaches over at Michael's, so that might be something that you may look. I had thrown the tag away, so I just really don't know what it's called. And then what I do is I just take it around 2 fingers, and then I wrap it 4 times around those 2 fingers. I cut off an extra piece, tie it off in the middle. Then I'm using my Cutter Bee scissors because they're very sharp, and they kind of get in between those loops, because that is, I want to cut those loops apart so that I get the fluffiness for his mustache. For the details of his face, what I'm using is my number 2 flat paintbrush. I'm just using some black paint and going to put 2 slashes at the top, kind of connecting there at the top for his eyes. Now that's the look that I like, but you could also use the end of a paintbrush to give 2 dots, or a Sharpie marker to draw the eyes the way that you like them. Okay, so I'm sharing this here because I had decided to put some, highlights for the cheeks. And on one of the Santas, the one on the left, I kind of put antique white. Nah, I didn't like that. It was too dark. So I pulled out my white paint and put the white kind of whimsical features on the cheeks. All right, so for the eyelashes, I just decided this day to use my ultrafine Sharpie marker and just put some eyelashes for Santa's cheeks, and then just using my little detailing brush, just putting the white in the eyes. And for whatever reason, I forgot to click record on my camera. I just put some white stripes on the paintbrushes just with my liner brush. And so I did that all the way around. So then I also added some black and white paint splattering like I like to do on all of my projects. Then once that was all totally dry, I did sand them just to expose a little bit of the wood. And then I am giving each of them a coat of this varnish that I like to use. and you can find that varnish at any craft store as well as in my Amazon shop. Okay, so then for the nose, I like to use little miniature wood plugs. This is 1/4 inch wood plug that I got from Hobby Lobby. And so then I just glue those on there right in the center. And then to give it some color, I'm using that coral color paint that I also used for his cheeks. I'm using that just to stipple on a little bit of the paint to give him a rosy red nose. Then I'll use my detailing brush just to give a little swoosh on the top just for a highlight. Once I get the nose on, then I will add the mustache there just with hot glue. So I decided to make some miniature signs to add as a tag for my Santa. So I just have some ivory color cardstock, an ultrafine Sharpie marker, and some distress ink. Now, the only place I can find true distress ink is from Amazon. And so I do have that listed in my Amazon shop. So I'm just writing out Santa for one tag. The next tag, I will write out Merry Christmas. So I'm just going to kind of let this go and just, kind of show y'all how I just hand letter by just using the ultrafine Sharpie marker. Then I go back and make my happy dots with the fine Sharpie marker. I'm going to rip the edges to give it, and then give it some distressing the way that I like. And y'all have seen me do this many times on my videos, so I'm just going to kind of let it go and let y'all watch me do my little magic. And all glory to the Lord for the gifts and the talents to share with so many fun and sweet friends here. I also added some black stitching around each of the signs just to give it a more whimsical rustic look. So I pulled out my glossy accents and just kind of painted over the tag. Now I tried to go gently and not too much because that distress ink does tend to smear. So then I wanted to glitter them up, and so I needed something wet for my glitter to stick to, and my glossy accents is great for that. Guys, you can get it at any craft store, or you can look for it on Amazon. Okay, so then I'm going to use some homespun fabric, and I just chose this green and red one. Now, homespun fabric you can get anywhere at Hobby Lobby, Walmart has it, or JubileeFabric.com is another place that you can get fun homespun for any day or as well as holidays. So then here I have all of my embellishments that I'm going to put on my Santa, but I ended up not using those berries or the greenery. So I have just some very small jingle bells. Now I'm not quite sure what the size of these are. I just had a whole bunch of them that I rusted up. And so I just had them in a cup so they were not in a bag. But I think I got the bag from Dollar Tree, and then I rusted them up using my friend Linda's rusting technique. Okay, so then what I did is I just threaded them on a piece of wire, and then just stuck it at the top of that, where that hole is on the Santa on the paintbrush. So I'm using my wire curling tool, the most smallest one that they have. I will insert a link here, and then as well as in the description, I have a link of where you can find these curling tools, and it just really helps if you have problems curling wire. Okay, so then now I'm just going to put a very small hole using my wire hole punch. I do have a link for that as well. It's located in my Amazon shop. And so then I just take a piece of thread, just very thin thread, and then make some, just thread it through the tag, and then I tie a knot there at the top so that it kind of holds it, and then I'll attach it at the top where those jingle bells are so that it hangs nicely on my Santa ornament. So I'm taking a strip of that homespun that I had torn off and just poking it through the hole of the paintbrush up at the top. Then I'm going to tie it off just for a hanger for my Santa. And these make cute little gifts for coworkers, craft show sellers, for neighbor gifts, or something like that. And so I just knot it there at the top. And then to finish it off, I was going to put some greenery and some berries and stuff on it, but I just really felt like just the tag and just all the cuteness of the Santa face really just did it justice. So it really didn't, need anything else. So I just am tacking it there, that little sign or tag, so that it doesn't move. And this is how they turned out. I love them so much, and I hope that you do too. And if you make some, please don't forget to share them with me over in my Country Charm Crafty community, or send me a picture through Instagram or Facebook. If gnomes are more your style for your little Christmas ornaments, I have a cute idea that I was inspired by a friend over on Facebook. I will link to my credit inspiration in the description box below, because I do like to give credit for inspired projects that I do. Now, these are some of the supplies that I'm using: the faux fur, and most of this stuff came from Hobby Lobby. And these little mini charcuterie boards are really inexpensive when you get them on sale after the season is over. Now, I had this piece of fur because I had cut it for a previous project, and I accidentally notched it a little bit. And so when you're working with fur and you want to keep that wispiness, you want to cut the backing of the fur versus cutting the fur itself. And so I get the best result using my box blade. Now I'm just kind of figuring out here where I want to position the nose, and also I'm just kind of taking my time, because since I'm going to have to offset this fur a bit, since I want to have the wispiness of the fur in the front, and I do not want that notched area kind of, now this is just particular for my piece of fur that I had. So I'm just kind of sharing things that, kind of how I work through some things if I want to use this instead of cutting a hole, cutting into the other piece. I'm like, I'm just trying to figure out how I'm going to make this work. All right. So then that's why now I am, kind of just gluing this on right here. And then I didn't paint it. I didn't do anything like that, because everything's going to be covered up anyway. And these little mini charcuterie boards are so well made anyway, and they just make cute little decor or sweet little ornaments like this. So then I'll just continue to glue the fur all the way around. And like I said, because I had the little notched part of the fur, I don't even remember what reason that was. So that's why I'm just kind of cattywampus, just kind of positioning and gluing and tacking my fur on all the way around. And it just so happens that it was the right length. I just, figured out how I could put my nose in there without that notched part, where that notched part that I messed up on was in the back, and that the front was all wispy like a Santa's beard is. All right, I just used some E6000 as well as hot glue just to put on my nose, because I wanted to have my nose on there before I put my fabric on there, because I wanted to make sure that I get the right placement. Now, I had a different vision when I first started this. I didn't cut my fabric long enough to make a taller, I guess, hat. And so before I realized it, I should have really realized it about this part. I'm like, girl, you're not going to have enough of the fabric at the top to bend it over. But I had already gotten too far into the project, and I was really, since I was filming this for a video, I didn't want to have to redo it. So I'm just kind of sharing that, something doesn't maybe work out, but just go to plan B. Sometimes you maybe even need to go to plan C. And so I'm just here to encourage you, just to give you ideas that, it doesn't always work out for us creators either. All right. So another thing that I'm doing is going to add some stuffing because I want my hat to have a little bit of form. So I'm just using fabric fill from Walmart or the craft store or whatever. But you could use, anything that maybe, you would like, that which you use for the stuffing. So I want to make kind of more like a tube. And so I'm just gluing the hat on here and just making sure that it is all tacked down so that I can, have something to put my little stuffing in. And so again, here I probably should have, said you don't have enough fabric, but it's really okay because I really like the way that the end result of my little primitive country Santa turned out. So here's when I realized, girl, you do not have enough of the fabric to make the hat, fold over the way that, a typical Santa hat does. But like I said, we just went with it. I end up taking a little bit of the stuffing out and saying, oh, nope, that don't work either. So anyway, we're just rolling with it. Okay, so then now what I'm going to do is make my hat a little bit different. Just have it, up at the top. And so have some little plastic rubber bands that I got from the Dollar Tree in the hair accessory section. And I use those all of the time in my craft room. And then I just tie a piece of muslin fabric. I just ripped off a piece of that just to give it kind of, just some fabric at the top. Now for my jingle bells, what I'm using are 2 of the 20 millimeter jingle bells. And I think I got these at Hobby Lobby when they were offering the rusty jingle bells, the smaller size. Anyway, I've had these for a little bit of time. So then also to curl the jingle bells on, I'm using this brown wire that I got from Michael's. It comes on this paddle and I love it because it's brown and it looks almost rusty, and it just really goes with my primitive country projects. Okay, so then I'm just threading these on, and then I'm just going to wrap it around the top and then curl the ends of the wire down. I'm using a end of a paintbrush just to curl those down, just to give it that wispy, rustic country look that I like with my little rusty wire. All right, this next part is a little new to me. Now I'm using some of this fur, and also I'm using some grunge mix. That is what is in this jar, and I just have a chippy brush to put it on with. Now I'm using my friend Tracy Campbell. She is from My Sweet Home Living. I will have a link to her recipe. It's something that you make yourself in your kitchen, and this has kind of taken the primitive country world by storm. I will have a link to Tracy's recipe. She's so gracious to kind of have a cute little printable and a graphic posted for everyone, because so many people are interested in grunging up a lot of their different things. Tracy also has an amazing channel. She's on Facebook and she's also on YouTube. So I will have a link to her channel. She does have so many fun primitive country style different projects, and she just is so amazing with just kind of sharing simplicity, simple projects, and just has a way of sharing just really makes you feel at ease and makes you feel like, yes, I can do that too. So look for those links in the description box below. And thank you, Tracy, for being so gracious in sharing so many wonderful ideas with so many people. We love them, and everybody just wants to recreate them. All right, guys. So then what I'm doing here is I am just, I'm just grunging this up because I wanted a more primitive country looking fur for my Santa, and I achieved that look with Tracy's grunge mix, and I just love it so much. Again, look in the description box for those links. So the strip of the fur was a little too wide, so I'm just using my box blade, and then I'm using this mat that's more of a self-healing mat, and I'm just cutting it apart a bit, and just kind of, yeah, I'm using gloves, guys. I'm using gloves because I don't want all of that grunginess all over my fingers like I did with the candy canes last week. Anyway, but yeah, vinyl gloves are a staple in my craft room, especially now that I'm, kind of using all of this grunge mix and just reigniting my love for primitive country crafts like this. Oh, I love it. All right. So then what I'm doing is just, gluing the fur down. And then I'm realizing, this is way too white. So I go ahead and pull out my grunge mix again and then add some of it to that muslin fabric. Now, probably I should have done this, before I tied it on, but you know what? We just make do and we just figure out how to make it work. When we have it on there, I didn't want to have to untie it. And then I just use my heat tool to kind of dry everything so that it gives it a bit of stiffness. For some decoration, I wanted some little candy canes. So I pulled out one of those pipe cleaners that I grungied up last week in a recent video. I will have a link to that if you would like to see how I do that or how I did that. Anyway, I wanted, I put them into, I formed them into candy canes, but they were still a little flimsy. So I pulled out my Stiffen Quick. It's a stiffening spray. And so I just laid my candy canes out on a piece of parchment paper and then just sprayed them with the Stiffen Quick. Let them dry and yep, we are good to go. We are in business. So I am just going to decorate kind of like the top of my Santa hat. And so I have some greenery and some of those pit berries. And then I'm going to use a couple of those small candy canes, just crisscross those just to give me the look that I want for my little Santa. For a little small bow, I'm using some of this jewelry cording that I get in the jewelry section, and I'm just going to make a 2-loop bow, just simple, just to put there and glue on the top of my candy canes. For a hanger, I'm just using a piece of that homespun fabric. But first, I want to add a bit of grunginess to it because, first of all, it smells really good. And then second, it just really adds the grunge that we like for our primitive country projects. And if that is not something that you like in your projects, then don't do it. It's just that if you do like that look, which a lot of us do, this is a great way to grunge up any of your primitive country projects. Okay, so then I wanted just to kind of share this with you. I wanted my Santa to hang on a hook, and I didn't want his hat to fall forward. So just the way that I made it, I just glued a little bit of it in the back, just that so that it would kind of pop up, that top part of the hat. And then I'm just going to make just a hanger for the back of my Santa so that he hangs nicely. And this would be so cute on a little hook on a Christmas tree, as an ornament, on a doorknob, just anywhere you want, just a little pop of Christmas in your home. And also it would make a wonderful gift for someone special. And to add a little bit of pizzazz to my Santa, I'm going to add some glitter. Now this is totally optional, of course, but I love the little sparkle. So I have this diamond glitter from Hobby Lobby, and then I'm using this Elmer's Craft Bond spray adhesive. Just spray some of that on there and then just sprinkle on a little bit of the shimmer. And my little primitive country Santa just turned out so cute, and I hope that you love him as much as I do. For this project, I'm making some cute Farmhouse Rustic Christmas ornaments. Now I'm starting with a couple of the wood cutting boards from Hobby Lobby. These were in the fall season. Picked them up pretty cheap. The paper that I'm using is from the Winterberry stack. That is also from Hobby Lobby. So what I did, guys, is I just pulled them on the front and just kind of traced it out just with my pen here. I kind of like to do it from the front so that I get the pattern that I want, just to make sure that I don't get off a bit. Since I am going to want to put those little leather straps back in there, I'm just going to take my pencil and just mark that hole so that I can take my multi-punch hole puncher that I picked up recently. I will have a link to it in the description because I did get some questions about that, and if it's something that you like, it has different sizes of holes so that you can punch out your paper or whatever you're dealing with. To attach the paper to the cutting boards, I'm just using the wet Mod Podge method. Since these are pretty cut and dry, I just put some Mod Podge on the bottom, and then I just stuck my paper on top. I let that dry before I put a layer of Mod Podge over the top, and just making sure that I didn't have any of the bubbles, and that just seals it all and gives me just a really nice finish. So what I did then is I just took my little finger sander. I got this one off of Amazon. It's a little gator finger sander. Just love this so much. It's just so easy to work with. And so I just kind of sanded the edges of it just to expose just a little bit of that and kind of give it more of the rustic look. Then I took my antique linen distress ink, just little pad here. I did get these off of Amazon, but I have also seen them at the craft store in the ink pad section. I went around the edges just to give it a little bit of just kind of like highlight around the edges of it. I just really feel that it just ties in the rusticness for this project. And guys, I do want to mention that I was completely inspired when I ran across something very similar on Pinterest. I want to give credit for that inspiration, so we'll have the link for it in the description box, so please check that out. All right, so then for the embellishments, I have these small Christmas stockings. They're like made out of muslin material. They're cute already. I got these over at Hobby Lobby. They come 4 in a pack. So I'm going to be taking one of those. And then to decorate it for the inside, I am just going to be adding some different greenery, some berries, just some different embellishments just to give it the hint of greenery and the Christmas season that us country Christmas fans love so much. All of these just things like this just really make our projects pop, and also just makes my heart very happy. So guys, for the small Christmas tags for each of my little cutting board ornaments here, I'm using the clickable stamps. Guys, I was so inspired when I've seen my friends Jen and Linda both use these in their projects. And of course, I have to get some as well. You can find those over at Michael's. So what I do is I like to stamp on an old stamp pad. That is what's underneath there. And so once I get to the words the way that I want, then you can see me here, I'm kind of struggling with too much pressure at the beginning. And so then it's just kind of a learning curve to figure out how much pressure you want. And so I love these little clickable stamps because it has multiple letters and you can spell out different things. So I did Merry Christmas first, and then on the other one, the round one, I did Ho Ho Ho. And I also gave each of the small tags some distressing with my vintage photo distress ink. I apologize, I was out of the camera shot there, right there. Also, to give it a bit of dimension, I'm just using these 3D foam squares, or I call them pop dots. And so I just put some of that on the back of the little signs. Then I enhance it a bit, or secure it a little bit more with some hot glue so that my tag doesn't fall off. Over the years of just handling it, and these small cutting board ornaments, I was calling them ornaments, but they make perfect little gifts for coworkers, teacher gifts, just a friend that may be hurting, somebody special, just something, or just for a special someone, just to say, I'm thinking about you this Christmas. Okay, here are the supplies I'm using for this cute little nativity setup. I'm using 2 of these blocks from this tumbling tower set that I picked up from Five Below. These are the larger ones. And then these one smaller tumbling tower block that is from Dollar Tree. So you can kind of see the difference. And then I have 2 20 beads that I'm using for Joseph and Mary's head, and then a 15 millimeter split ball for baby Jesus. Have a piece of burlap. Now, to give the color for the wood, I'm using this antique wax that I'm just going to put it on with my with a baby wipe. Also, so that Mary is just a head shorter of Joseph, I just cut off a little piece of that block just using my saw. For the sign, I have this piece of craft cardstock, and I'm going to hand letter on here, tear the edges, distress them, and then glue it onto the block just to give it a little different look and some texture and dimension. to add a bit of shimmer and sparkle, I have this puffy paint in gold. It's kind of translucent, and I'm going to just put a coat over the sign just to give it a little shimmer.